Up until 1926, women were not allowed to hold property on the same term as men, according to the Parliament of the United Kingdom. Before 1926, women were constantly faced with oppression regarding their ownership of possessions, personal status, and personal opinions. After analyzing the novel Emma by Jane Austen, I have gained incredible insight to how women were treated in the 19th century and the expectations they were forced to follow. Through Emma's unique outlook for a woman in the 19th century, Emma displays proto-feminism qualities by challenging the men around her by not submitting herself to marriage immediately. Even though Emma was written in the 19th century, feminism and the issues women experienced in the novel are still ongoing issues in the 21st century. Today, I'm going to talk about how Emma displays proto-feminism ideals by not submitting herself to marriage immediately and not depending on a husband for security. Also, I want to give you a little background on how women were treated in England during the 19th century. First, I would like to highlight the reason why women were lured into marriage and the consequences unmarried women experienced in the 19th century. During the 19th century, women were unable to buy, sell, own, or even inherit possessions independently without being under the control of their husbands, according to report. Without these possessions, women were looked down upon by society and did not have a high social status, which was a very sought-after quality. Having your social status on the line, women wanted to only marry for financial and status support, not emotion. Even though these possessions were under the control of their husbands and there was no true feelings, it still allowed women to withhold a certain social status, which was something everybody wanted. As you can understand, women would want to marry in order to have some sort of possession, but there are still so many limitations. If women were unmarried and had premarital sex, they had no legal standing or voice. This would entice women into marriage because it allowed them to have somewhat of a social and financial standing. In some extreme cases, if women were unmarried and pregnant, they were considered social scandals, explained in an essay by Krumrin. Women were not allowed into society and in some cases were forced to give up their children because they were unfit for motherhood, according to Grimaldi. If children were born outside of wedlock, these children were considered bastards and they were never financially supported by their fathers, according to Bailey. As you can see, as a woman, it would be pretty understandable why they would choose the path of marriage instead of being unmarried with no social status or opinion in society. Ultimately, a woman's marital status was the primary determination of their legal standings and the welfare of their children, which ultimately enticed them to marry. Emma's opposition to this serves as a perfect example to proto-feminism ideas. Throughout the novel, Emma opposes marriage, serving as an example to social stigma and female independence. Emma releases her feelings in Austen's novel by stating, "I have none of the usual inducements of women to marry. Were I to fall in love, indeed it would be a different thing, but I never have been in love. It is not my way or my nature, and I do not think I ever shall. And without love, I am sure I should be a fool to change a situation as mine." Seeing the benefits of social status and possessions from marriage, Emma still does not feel enticed. She would rather marry for true feelings, not stability and social status. Emma also exemplifies turning away from female stereotypes by stating, "It is always incomprehensible to a man that a woman should ever refuse an offer of marriage. A man always imagines a woman to be ready for anybody who asks her." Austen is recognizing the female stereotype for women and how common it was for women to follow. Emma's strong will in going against stereotypes shows her perseverance for proto-feminism, which was a very unique thing for a woman to do during this time and was very uncommon. Even though these social customs were more prominent in the 19th century, There are still many ongoing issues in the 20th century regarding feminism and the response it receives. 100 years ago, women were unable to apply for a credit card or a loan by themselves, have their own name printed on their passports without their husband's last name, or even become a lawyer according to Ganal. These are just some of the many examples of oppression women have endured in the last years. Legally, these problems have been solved, but there are still gender stereotypes and social stigmas. The church responds to feminism in a positive way to rebuke these stereotypes. Pope Francis responds to women in a very compassionate way by stating, when we speak of women, we speak in a functional way. A woman is for doing this, when she is for something else, women bring something without which the world would be like this. She brings a richness that man and all of creation and all animals do not have. Having the Pope respond to feminism in this way influences a larger crowd to look at feminism in a compassionate way. With people like Pope Francis, we can continue to promote gender equality and rid of all of these stereotypes that have followed us through the years. Even though there are still many issues on gender equality today, large organizations like the church aid in flipping negative stereotypes. Today, I explain the history of female oppression, Emma's contributions to feminism, and the 20th century response to feminism through the church. Through Emma's unique outlook for a woman in the 19th century, Emma displays proto-feminism qualities by challenging the men around her by not submitting herself to marriage immediately. This ultimately created a foundation for feminism and allowed others to look at Emma as a role model. After today, I hope you have a better understanding of feminism and proto-feminists like Emma who have created a better pathway and foundation in the 20th century.